welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's only daily show dedicated to entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. I'm Rahul Daima coming to you from India Startup Hub, Bengaluru. We do have a power-packed show lined up for you on the show today. First up, the big clarification coming in on angel tax. CBDT has issued a clarification, another one really this time. Remember, the bone of contention has been Section 57, so to say, and the clarity that startups have really been awaiting on that. After several clarifications and entrepreneurs complaining that current cases, assessments were not really covered, CBDT today has issued a clarification. They have indicated that startups registered with DPIIT will be given exemption from the contentious tax law if they go on to fulfill certain conditions. For limited cases, really, there'd be a blanket exemption given, while if there are multiple issues that a case is really grappling with, the case will be handled by an assessing officer going ahead. While this is a crucial clarification, startups that I've been talking to indicate it does not really cover startups that are already battling orders really. To take this forward and decode what this really means for the startup ecosystem, we are joined by important guests on the show today. We have Siddharth Pai from 314 Capital joining us from Bengaluru. Thanks, Siddharth. We also have Mithul Mehta, a partner at Constellation Blue, to sort of discuss the issue. Thank you, both of you, for joining us. We will have more guests join us during the course of the conversation. Siddharth, if I can come to you first. Your first assessment of the clarification. We have seen so many circulars really come by, but entrepreneurs claim the issue has not been completely addressed as yet.
It is an extension of the budget speech made by the Honorable Finance Minister, where they said that in case there's any scrutiny for Section 56(2)(7)(b) or angel tax, the assessing officer would need to take the prior permission of one of their seniors. That being said, this particular circular from the entrepreneurs I've spoken to as of now, this particular circular seems to insert another layer of bureaucracy in an already embittered war between the tax departments as well as startups. Now, one of the major problems in this circular is the fact that for startups who've already received an angel tax notice previously and are actually going through the entire assessment order proceedings as of now, they still see no relief. Because in the February 2019 DPIIT circular, Section 6 of that categorically stated that that particular notification would not apply to startups who have already received orders and are in the appeals process as of now. So even with this particular notification, those startups are still left in the lurch and they see no relief coming out of this. Now, another issue with the wording of this circular is that the notices being received by startups as of now don't specifically mention Section 56(2)(7)(b) by name at all. All they mention is, please give us a justification of the fair value of the shares and securities issued by you to various investors. Now, the reason why the particular wording of these assessment orders being received by and notices being received by startups is particularly alarming, because the fair value concept has two places in the Income Tax Act. That's Section 56(2)(7)(b), which is regard to angel tax, and Section 68. So most of the startups now and their professionals and chartered accountants aren't sure under what section is the Income Tax Department actually asking for this particular information. Is it Section 56(2)(7)(b) or Section 68? Now, along with this circular, it would really help clarify the issue that the CBDT should state that in case any fair value question is raised by an assessing officer during a notice, it shall only be raised under Section 56(2)(7)(b), under which the startup can actually take recourse under this particular circular. Until we have that particular clarification coming in, there are possibilities that this particular circular will not be applied judiciously by the assessing officers, and the harassment being faced by startups will actually continue as is.
Right. All right. So that told your thoughts that you're saying that, the touch point as far as bureaucracy interference would really increase going ahead as well. Mithul, I want you to come in on this. While this is an important clarification, covers startups whose cases are still really being scrutified, while it gives clarity, it does put more power in the hands of the assessing officer, so to say.
I kind of second what Siddharth is saying in that sense, and yes, it is good news that we've taken a few steps ahead, but we've not reached the end goal for sure. I think over the last few months there have been some positive steps. The fact that angel tax got mentioned at the budget speech, these clarifications coming out. So these are few things that are working in favor of the startup ecosystem. But I think from a, just a conclusive perspective for founders on especially existing cases, it is still a little bit of a problem where we still will need some clarification as far as the bureaucracy and process is concerned. Yes, there is one more level added where founders may have to go and explain themselves and explain their startups. But I think if the spirit of the law is correct and if these clarifications are in favor of the startup ecosystem, I'm hoping for that not to be too much of a problem.
All right, there, Mithul and Siddharth saying that while it's a welcome move, the touch point for bureaucracy increases. I believe we do have Ravi Gururaj, president of TAI Bangalore and also an entrepreneur himself. Ravi, we have been discussing this issue for a long time now. It's heartening to see that there are clarifications coming in, right? We've seen multiple ones from the finance ministry now, CBDT also giving some clarity on the matter.
Step in the right direction, and I think hopefully this will put to bed this issue. I think we'll still have to resolve some of the cases that are already open. That could be a little bit more complicated, but at least if having the government recognition certificate prevents you from being assessed for this Section 56, then I think this will be a good move and some welcome relief for startup founders for sure.
All right, Siddharth, coming back to you, also the bone of contention from CBDT, from Finance Ministry has been that we cannot put a blanket ban on Section 56, so to say, because there are significant issues. We cannot have a free run for investors because the point is that there is some amount of black money that's making its way through the ecosystem. So there is a need for checks and balances as well, right? Even as you go around giving these exemptions to DPIIT registered startups.
So I think, see, what the CBDT should also take cognizance of is in order to catch one crook, 99 innocent people can't be aggrieved to this particular extent. Now, taxing investments as income strikes at the very heart of startups, because India is already a capital-starved nation. Our domestic investment participation into our startups is about 7 to 8% of the total money being raised. Last year, in fact, Indian startups raised about $14 billion of capital, out of which only 7 to 8% actually came from domestic sources. And the vast majority of the money coming to these startups from domestic investors actually comes into the early stage itself, at the very nascent stage of the startup. And the moment you start taxing that at 30% of that particular amount, 2 years after the money's come in as tax, most of the startups are actually crippled. Most of them are actually stifling under this, and the cases are taking really long to actually come out. So suitable balance needs to be maintained. Now, what they could ask the startups is, please give us the bona fides of your investor. Please give us the PAN account or the PAN number of the investor. Give us the bank account from which the money is actually come. Now, given the fact that the PAN is actually been linked to their bank accounts, and once the CBDT has the PAN number, they can actually assess whether this particular individual had the financial capability of making that investment. They can run all these analytics at the back end instead of putting the startup in the middle of this and aggrieving the startup and the entrepreneur throughout the entire cycle. Our CBDT spoken volumes about the fact that they're actually using data analytics to cast down on people who have been evading taxes. Why can't they apply those same principles into this particular space? Why are the startups being actually caught in the middle of this entire tussle between black money? Because the number of startups who have actually come in as of now, several prominent angels have actually invested into them. They're harassing these startups by asking them for, give us your bank account statements, give us the bank account statements of your investors, give us the 3 years tax returns of your investors. No domestic investor is going to act for a 5 to 10 lakh rupee investment into a startup is actually going to open the kimono and give their bank statement of 3 years, give their income tax return of 3 years. If in case you want to prove the bona fides of the investor, all this information is categorically available with the CBDT. If the CBDT actually finds, after analyzing all this, that there is some hanky-panky in this particular startup, that a startup received the money in cash, or there is some amount of laundering activity that's happening, then by all means they can open the case and go into detail. But these sort of roving inquiries that have been happening for so long have actually given a very bad name to India and the entire startup world, because no other startup ecosystem in the entire world has actively discriminated against its own residents and citizens from investing into domestic startups. India is the only country in the world to have actually done that. And the fact that this still hasn't been mitigated after so long, after so many circulars coming out, after people trying to involve the previous finance minister, the current finance minister, talking to DPIIT, the Ministry of Finance, CBDT, etc. The fact that another layer of bureaucracy has come out, that particular salvation and relief for the startup still hasn't come through, has become a very frustrating activity for most entrepreneurs.
Mithul, you want to come in on that? The fact that this has really impacted genuine businesses, tedious refunds really being held up, so much so that many startups have been forced to shut their shop.
Yeah, so I think yes, it has been a little tough on a lot of these founders, and the law around angel tax is more of a reactive law to a certain problem. Now that problem doesn't quite exist in these startups that are funded by angel investors, venture capital funds. So maybe if Startup India initiatives or DIPPs can be tightened a little, and you can actually, with the data analytics, figure out that yes, this is a startup that is genuine. There is a lot of interest in the Indian economy currently, where people want to invest in startups as part of their portfolio. So at the back end, if some technology can help assess the genuinity of these investors, then it will definitely help the startups. They are currently suffering. We are seeing that. I mean, these are founders that are focused on their products, on their technology, and all of a sudden they have to deal with a tax case. So it becomes a little bit difficult for them as well.
Who's there? All right, important words there. But also the keynote, if I can have the guests coming in also talk about the fact that if there are startups that are not registered by DPIIT, inquiry will be carried forward as may deem fit. So for startups that are not registered with DPIIT, there is no clarification. There is nothing that the taxman will do. They will really continue with the notices really. Siddharth, you want to come in on that?
So I think, see, the discretionary powers being afforded to the assessing officers is far higher over the past, since 2012, than ever has been in the past. And even now, this particular circular offers more discretionary powers to the tax officials. The higher the amount of discretionary powers being given to them, the greater, the more liable it actually becomes to misapplication towards these certain cases. Several of the people on the show have also stated that this particular law is being misapplied to startups. Even the CBDT commissioner during all our meetings, CBDT head with all our meetings has said that yes, 5627B was not meant to be applied to genuine companies. It is a deterrent measure to prevent black money from being laundered and being laundered as investments. That being said, is the only relief or the only solution available is to add more discretionary powers to the tax department so that they can go and start harassing these particular startups. It would make a lot more sense to leverage actually leverage the data analytics that they already have as of now. All their tax returns now, in fact, in the latest tax returns coming out, every SSC has to now categorically declare the investments that they've actually made into the unlisted space. So there is a paper trail being created out of all this. The dematerialization of shares is now, with the latest Companies Act amendment, all private limited companies have to now dematerialize their shares. There are various touch points for the government between all the various departments and filings that are being made to actually accurately determine whether these companies are Benami companies, whether these companies are coca companies, shell companies that are laundering money, or whether these are genuine companies who are actually conducting business and raising capital for business purposes. The fact that you're giving more discretionary powers, the fact that there's companies who are still left outside this particular realm, the fact that the tax department is sending out notices without specifically mentioning section 56(2)(b, thereby obviating all the circulars and relief being given out by the CBDT in this entire regard. This is actually aggrieving startups to a large extent. And even now, with the latest budget, a large number of entrepreneurs wanted to protest the fact that those who had received notices last year still haven't got relief. They still haven't got relief even with this circular as of now.
If we have Srijit on the phone line, Srijit, your first take, you're also an entrepreneur who is really battling. who is really battling a notice. Okay, we will have Srijit on the phone line as well. Perils of Live Television, apologize for that. But Mithul, coming back to you, how would you really rate the pace of investments? Also, we have seen angel rounds slowly pick up owing to clarity that has come by. The fact that Finance Minister also mentioned it in the union budget. So things are really looking up, picking up with investors. The earlier fear was that they may not really want to come back and be part of the rounds really.
Yeah, I think I agree to that. There has been, a significant pick in interest for investments in startups, especially in the last 2 years. Overall, like I mentioned earlier, there have been a few success cases in startups who have successfully exited. That also is attracting, a lot of people to diversify part of their wealth towards this, startup, initiative. So I think it's definitely, the government should probably do all that it can to ensure that, this is encouraged further, because I think it's one of the key to India, moving ahead.
Yes, so we are seeing the pace of investments really, although data indicating it is picking up, but I think a lot more of this clarity will depend on what really comes by. So that now, do you really think this is an open and shut case, or do you see a lot more clarity coming by in the months as well? We in the media have been tracking this case for more than a year and a half, and sort of lost count of the number of circulars that have been issued. Do you expect some more really coming by?
No, I think so. If you ask me, I personally believe that the saga will still continue as of now. There's still a number of rough edges that still haven't been smoothed out. There is still more clarity that needs to come in. The entrepreneurs who've already received notices and who are stuck in the appeals process still see no relief in this. And more importantly, it's going to be the implementation of this circular that's actually going to become critical as of now. What we need to see is whether the assessing officers on the ground will actually apply the circular judiciously, or will they actually start enhancing the scope of scrutiny? Because if you read the circular quite carefully, point number 1 says if the only issue is with regard to angel tax, they should just accept the startup's word. If the issue of angel tax is in addition to other issues, then the assessing officer has to take the permission of his senior before he can start it. So what's going to prevent the assessing officers as of now from not just putting angel tax, but also putting 2-3 other issues on top of that, thereby necessitating that they go to one of their seniors to get permission to actually go after this? What is going to prevent the assessing officer from just asking for the fair value certificate under section 68 or a different section, as opposed to section 56(2)(7)(b)? So it's going to be the application of this that's going to be key. But what I foresee from what we've gone through over the past 7 years with various companies and with various Indian investors is the fact that the story is still not closed. There may be more clarity that needs to come in. And until we have a situation where every single aggrieved entrepreneur is given relief, the startup ecosystem is still going to actually buckle under the pressure of angel tax, and the specter of this will still be haunting every entrepreneur as they start their journey.
All right. So Siddharth saying that we of course expect a lot more clarity coming in. This is not an open and shut case. I do believe we have Srijit joining us, founder at True Elements. Srijit, you have been at the helm of this issue right from the start, from gathering support among entrepreneurs, petitioning the government, writing to the Prime Minister himself. Also, you are battling notice yourself. Does life really change for you after this notification, or is this just another clarification that leaves a lot of doubt in the process?
It doesn't solve the problem, as Siddharth rightly put in. It doesn't solve the problem. It's almost 2 years now. The first time when we picked it up, it was almost end of 2017. Though one notification clarifies, or at least there is an intent from the government in terms of solving. But the problem is the time taken. It's almost 2 years, and we still don't have a permanent solution. Does this solve the angel tax issue? It doesn't. Yeah, but is it better than what we had day before yesterday? Yes, obviously it's better than what we had. The problem is the time and energy being put in behind this by the whole machinery, investors, startup, media, government. I don't know, nothing justifies that, right? So what we've been asking since beginning that, yeah, there are a lot of India is a very diverse country. The issue is a very, very complex issue. But there could be simple solutions available outside the world, right? When the money is legal, if the spend is legal, if it's been raised by the company on whatever valuation, what is government business? But yeah, it's not as simple as it has been said. But it doesn't change. It doesn't change my because I am contesting an order, and will this solve my problem? It will not completely, but it could also. So it is at the mercy of the officer who is going to look at my case and then interpret this notification. For example, the last notification was a step further, but it still had a lot of language ambiguity as to a startup cannot even park the money raised in an FD, as simple as that. If it is parked, then your exemption is no more valid. So the language is and the implementation is what is going to be the key. So it doesn't solve my day. I mean, it doesn't solve the problem. It's obviously, every day there is a progress, but there is no end.
All right, Shrajit, really staying on with you, while you're saying there is progress, it does not completely solve the problem. You are not a relieved entrepreneur, so to say, but really talk to us about, fellow entrepreneurs that you deal with, you sort of closely work with them. This has in many instances led to startups shutting down as well. So a lot of these previous cases really will not be taken up, not come under the ambit. So the CBDT will have to ensure in some way to either send out a message that previous orders will not be contested. Entrepreneurs will have to pay up and move on rather than keep them hanging this way.
We are a group of 200 plus founders, and all of us are sitting with an individual exemption letter addressed to each of our legal listed company, and with an exemption addressing us. But still, there's only one company who have got that exemption put into use and come out of the order. Okay, and there are around 12 of the orders have been quashed, though we had an exemption. Appeal has been quashed. We've been asked to pay. Two of the 12 companies have been asked to pay even with an exemption. So, the problem is big. I'm talking about the companies who have got an order and fighting an appeal. There might be many who are right now in the appeal stage. Okay. So, it could be simply solved, but all 200 plus of us are still waiting for, we don't know what will happen. So, as of today, one of our founders is fighting with his appeal in Kanpur, income tax department, right? So, and he has not got a positive, though he had an exemption. Okay, so it could be handled easily. We have directly had an interaction with CBDT when they called us, all of us, to Delhi in Feb 4th, and we had a fruitful discussion. We actually thought everything will be solved, but it didn't solve because the clauses which were written down, like some of the clauses are very valid, right? That we should not be spending that money in vehicles and in houses. Agreed. Now startups no legal startup would do that. Yeah, but don't even park your money in FD. Which world are we living? We raise upwards of 1 crore and we are expecting to be keeping that money in a current account for good 18 months. That's probably the average timeline which a startup takes to fundraise the timeline. So 18 months you're asking the startup to keep that 1.5 crore in a current account. Nobody does that. Everybody parks in FD or a liquid fund. When you do that, you cannot take the benefit of the exemption.
Fair enough.
So those kind of clauses are archaic. That cannot stand the day. Right?
All right. So Shrajit, fair enough. I'll come back to you. Shrajit, fair enough. I'll come back to you saying as far as the exemptions are also concerned, they need to be a little more, the exemptions that they should be a little more practical in that sense. Requesting Siddharth to also hold on while I go back to Mitul. Mitul, from the entire conversation that we have had so far, the sense is that while it's a welcome move, there is some more clarity coming in. It does not really address the problem entirely. That fair enough. But going ahead, what do you think from a policy standpoint, from a Startup India standpoint, really, should the government also make its intent clear that if they want to address a particular problem, they better really address it in entirety?
Yeah, I think that is the way forward that they should be taking, because this not having clarity for founders, investors at large is a problem. It could hurt the overall investing mood in India as well. And there have been like these exemptions. So for example, the companies cannot have a subsidiary. Now, these are again, like the vehicle example or the fixed deposit example. These are things that, government would probably have to take cognizance of, because a lot of startups want to, establish themselves globally as well, have subsidiaries in likes of Singapore or US. Now, while these are all startups, just because of this one thing, they kind of fall out of that angel tax exemption. So yes, I think the government needs to make some effort to ensure that there's complete clarity. It needs to be black and white very soon. It's been quite a long time it's been in grey.
All right, Siddharth, I want you to come in on this. I know we have covered a lot of ground in terms of what more can be done. Also, the critical issue has been the fact that there are a lot of departments really involved in this case. You have Finance Ministry, you have DPIIT, you have CBDT. So there are multiple departments that do not really acknowledge what the other is doing. I did have a few entrepreneurs tell me, while there have been circulars in place, CBDT, the assessing officer says we haven't really been communicated. So a lot of it really goes down to the last mile and how best can whatever already has been announced is implemented.
So see, it's ultimately in the entire structure, if you actually analyze it, the person with the most amount of power is the assessing officer. It's not the CBDT, it's not the CBDT head, it's not the Ministry of Finance, it's not even the finance minister, it's actually the assessing officer. Because ultimately, any translation of any circular coming in to action is actually implemented by the assessing officer at the ground level. And as Srijit and as multiple entrepreneurs have also said, the assessing officer says we haven't been briefed on this particular point, or we don't know what we have to do, or there's this particular section in this circular that was released on this date that actually nullifies all of this. Now it becomes very hard for the entrepreneur also to go and battle all this, because on one hand, every time a circular comes out, everyone on Twitter, everyone in the media says, okay, there's some amount of relief. But to the entrepreneur actually battling out, they don't see any of the relief coming in, because they're up against the stone wall of the assessing officer. Is it discretionary powers afforded to the assessing officer that actually becomes a major problem? It's important for the government to categorically state that if you have businesses in this, or these are the kind of triggers we're actually looking for, if you have any of these, then after this we will actually open the scrutiny case against you. But just because of the fact that a company actually raised capital, they end up getting a notice. In fact, I actually run a category 1 AIF, which has been exempted from angel tax. In spite of that, multiple of companies have invested in them, actually gotten these notices, and me as an investor have actually gotten these notices from CBDT, from the assessing officer, saying, prove your bona fides. Give us details of your underlying investors. Give us the details of your source of funds. We had to respond back saying, we're exempt from this circular, but nonetheless, to honor your request, we're giving you all these particular details. Even as someone who's been exempt from this, we end up getting these particular notices. So it becomes extremely frustrating. It's important for the government to reduce the touch point with bureaucracy, for them not to send out roving inquiries, but to delve into specific issues, and to leverage the data they already have, the connections they already have, as opposed to going and asking all these entrepreneurs again and again for the same reams of data in different formats from different regulators. The moment the touch points and the friction points reduce, we'll actually see this particular angel tax issue being alleviated to a large extent. I mean, with this circular, it's an additional layer of bureaucracy. It still has discretionary powers being given to the assessing officers and their seniors. And until it's implemented in a fashion, or it's implemented in a way that's transparent and unambiguous to investors, to entrepreneurs, to startups, and to the tax officials, this particular saga will keep on continuing.
All right, Siddharth, you're saying as an investor, you have also sort of received those notices from the tax department. Of course, that would be a big deterrent for genuine investors who sort of want to back startups. Also, considering that early rounds angel investments for a startup is very, very critical, really. Coming back to Srijit, what really is the way ahead in terms of the conversation that you've had with several departments so far, DPIIT, CBDT, FinMin? Really, the sense has been that the government does want to help. That's why you do have these multiple circulars that are really coming by. But as an entrepreneur, really, do you continue to really feel let down by the developments, the fact that everyone has been talking about this for so long, but the issue has still not been resolved?
completely let down. Let me just give you an example. For example, if somebody need to open, some US company need to open Indian entity, it is very easy. He create a legal entity here, get the money in and start operations. But an Indian, I am an Indian national, earned money in India, paid my taxes, and if I invest that tax paid money in a startup, the startup has to go through this. The investor has to go through this. Why such discrimination when a foreign national or a foreign company can just come and start operations? So if we need to have unicorns competing from India to a Silicon Valley, then this cannot go like this. And 2 years is a long time taken to solve such a simple problem, right? We are adding bureaucracy over bureaucracy. All of us have gone through multiple iterations. I spent almost 2.5 lakh in last 2 years, which has been wasted. First, I was asked, go and take a mercantile banker valuation and file for an exemption. I did that. Then they changed the notification. No need of mercantile valuation required. That 1.5 lakh rupees I spent on mercantile valuation report is gone. Right? So multiple iterations. There is no clear-cut thought process. They have a problem, which we agree. They have a big problem. India is a heterogeneous country. There's a complex problem. Yeah, but every time you keep on changing, this is probably 22nd notification since January 2018. When we have business to do, we need to create companies. We didn't sign up to fight the tax department and look for the notification coming out of CBDT. That was not what I signed up for. But that's what I'm doing. So yeah, there is hope. I'm not telling them we need to move out of country. There is hope because they are listening. They are coming out with notification. Yeah, but there has to be an end. We don't see that end coming in nearby. So
that's right. Srijit. All right, Srijit, yeah, that's right. Let's give due credit to the government as well. The fact that we have come this far really from the issue, at least there's so much more clarity now than we had a year and a half back. But I do have Nikunj also joining us, another entrepreneur who has been battling this tax notice, the tax demand for a long time now. Nikunj, your first thoughts really on the circular that has come by. We've been discussing this for over the last 25-30 minutes, but as an entrepreneur, Srijit has also highlighted while it's a welcome move, it does not really cover startups that are already battling orders like in your case.
Yeah, so in line with the FM's budget speech, which was actually very heartening to see the FM spending quite a lot of time on angel tax in the budget speech. But the fact is that startups like mine have been hanging in balance, have been held captive since the last 2 years, and we haven't seen any permanent resolution to our problem because we are actually at the mercy of each tax officer's individual interpretation. The startups whose assessment order is not yet passed, for them this is a welcome clarification that they cannot, the assessing officer cannot start the assessment without taking a supervisor's approval. But why have that process in the first place? I mean, if you're a registered startup, then why go through an assessment in the first place? I mean, on the issue of angel tax, particularly when you've got an exemption to that effect. As far as we are concerned, we are just asking a simple question that if the FM is so apprised of the problem and they are seized of the problem, why can't they have a clean order for all the affected startups who are suffering from this issue and help us, move on? Why are we being left out of any solution that is proposed by the CBDT? And we are not given any hearing on this matter, and our appeals are also stuck for ages. We have not even got our appeals to be heard out. We are not able to take further investment because the contingent liability is standing on the books. So I don't understand what is the problem in the existing startups being relieved immediately on this problem.
All right, then Nikunj saying that existing orders that are there whose TDS refunds have sort of been adjusted this is still the confusion that really continues. Siddharth, I know I'm holding you on for a long time, but considering that this has come by, Shrijit spoke about several notifications that have really come in. We have never seen startups sort of make it to announcements in the budget. That really seems to have changed over the last 2 years. But the intent seems to have been there. It's more about ensuring that all departments work together and go on to implement what is really there. And the taxman harassment, if I could sort of, increase the ambit of the discussion. We've seen it in the Cafe Coffee Day case as well, although it's an unverified letter. We saw a lot of entrepreneurs stand up and say that this is what is really stifling innovation businesses, the harassment at the hands of the taxman.
So I think we should start off by actually giving credit where credit's due. It's actually been the current government and Prime Minister Modi specifically who's actually brought startups into the limelight. I mean, he launched Startup India way back in 2016. It's actually galvanized entrepreneurial sentiment. Even the changes they've actually brought on the ground in terms of easier incorporation, more leniency given by RBI, etc. to startups has greatly helped galvanize entrepreneurial spirit in the country. But the Achilles heel of Startup India has always been the income tax piece. More specifically, the angel tax part. And we really need to ask ourselves, is this such a complicated problem that it requires these many departments, these many man hours, these many mentions in the budget, these many notifications to come out? So many notifications, in fact, that even professionals like chartered accountants finding it extremely hard to keep up with the pace of notifications. In spite of this, the relief on the ground hasn't been as much. So it's important for the ambiguity to come down and for the tax terrorism to actually abate in this particular regard. Now, there have been allegations of tax terrorism that have been floating around for quite some time. The CCD case, as you mentioned, has become a prime example of that. And it's unfortunate that VG Siddhartha has sort of become the exemplar of the extent of tax terrorism in the country. Now, for the people just starting off their entrepreneurial journeys, this actually becomes a significant deterrent for them. And if India has to become a $5 trillion economy by the year 2025, we will need at least 100,000 startups coming out. Startups have been found mentioned in the speeches given by the president during the opening of parliament as well. But in spite of this, this angel tax issue that a relic from 2012, when this government wasn't even in power, is still actually become a sword of Damocles dangling over the head of every single startup. So what we need is an unambiguous solution that does not afford more and more discretionary powers to the assessing officer, and which gives relief not just to startups who are yet to receive notices, but startups who have received notices as well. I think the moment this particular spectre is put behind, the entrepreneurial spirit can really be released. Because for early stage companies, imagine, as Shrijit and Nikunj mentioned, no investor is going to come into a company where 30% of their money is going to end up being paid, being given as tax, or which is going to use to clear out pending liabilities of the company. They rather invest in a fresh company. Several entrepreneurs who stopped going abroad are now looking to start their next venture in Singapore and actually open a subsidiary in India, because that route actually becomes easier than operating a company within this country. I think it's these systemic issues that need to be solved, and this isn't rocket science. We've actually put multiple satellites into space. We've actually gone to Mars. We've gone to the moon before we could actually solve angel tax. I mean, this is something that's become so frustrating for everyone now. We need relief, and we actually need relief as immediately as possible.
That's right. Very pertinent points there from Siddharth, saying that there is so much more that is left to do, and the fact that this has been a contentious issue for so long. Lastly, let me get in Nikunj before I let all of you go. I've been holding you on for so long. But Nikunj, how hopeful are you that something more will come by? Because some of the entrepreneurs I've been talking to, of course, off the record, tell me that they would prefer to pay the taxes and move on and focus on their businesses, considering this ends up taking so much of their time that they would have otherwise really wanted to focus on the business itself.
That's actually very unfortunate that we have had, while positive news flow to say that there is this notification, there is that notification, on the ground there is actually a sense of despair in hundreds of entrepreneurs who are thinking that while all this is going on, why is the taxman on the ground still saying, look, this notifications don't apply to you because they came later on, or your case is not exempt because of so and so reason. In fact, the exemption also was so conditional that it should, it's so restrictive I mean, if you invest money in a mutual fund, your exemption becomes void. Now, startups would park their surplus in mutual funds, and if that makes the exemption void, then what is the point of this exemption? I'm still taking the exemption as it is and saying that if we have given a conditional exemption, then why are the tax guys not honoring that? I am hopeful that something will come out, but I think now for the existing startups, the hope is also waning by the day, because whatever the FM is actually, you can't expect anything more than the FM being apprised of this issue. And if the FM is apprised of this issue and yet those existing startups are being left on their own mercy, then I don't know why the startups would have a hope that something will get solved. I am actually a hopeless optimist, so maybe I have that 2% hope that something might get resolved. But frankly, I can understand why startups are actually giving up on this idea of things will get resolved, which is very unfortunate. I mean, you're saying that startups are preferring to pay, but not everybody can afford to pay also. For some startups, it may be the end of the road. That is going to be unfortunate.
Considering if you have raised 1 crore and have to pay 30 lakh, it's sort of... Of course, if you've raised 1 crore and have to pay 30 lakh as tax, that's sort of the death of the startup itself. Not really the note I would have wanted to end this discussion on, but completely out of time. Siddharth, Shrijit and Nikunj, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us. So the view from entrepreneurs, investors is that while it's a welcome move, really, a lot more will have to be done to really ensure that this is a shut case completely. On that note, we slip into a short commercial break. Coming up on the other side is a special segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back to ET Now Startup Central, India's only daily show dedicated to entrepreneurship, technology and innovation. Moving on from that heavy-headed discussion around angel tax to a fund that all startups must keep an eye on. Samsung has really made four investments in the startup space here from their venture fund in India. And joining me is Dr. Alok Nath, CTO of Samsung R&D, really from Bangalore, to sort of take the conversation forward and what startups should do to pitch them right. So thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us on ET Now. I want to understand what really took you so long to bring Samsung Ventures here in India. You've backed about 4 startups last month, really, but why now, really?
Samsung Venture, as you know, it's Samsung's investment arm, and it has been operating since '99 in different countries, from South Korea to US to UK, Israel, China, Japan. And now here we are talking about investment in India, in Indian startups. And over time, it has invested over $2.2 billion. And I think your question has been, why now? It's not late. The way we have seen how we have been operating here for last 23 years, and over time, we have made sure our own deliveries are straightened out. Our own in-house innovation is in place, and then we jumped onto open innovation. So I'll start up maybe later a little bit on how we did our open innovation. But very frankly, why now? We see the Indian startup ecosystem is quite a lot maturing. We see that deep tech companies are coming. We see many hyper-local service companies, they have been very successfully progressing. Government initiatives on startups, Startup India, Stand Up India, those kinds of initiatives are definitely fueling the growth of the startup community. There are a lot of VCs. And at the same time, we do see exits are happening. This last year itself, 250 plus exits that has happened. So I think from that standpoint, external ecosystem standpoint, I see we are kind of ready, and it's a right time, it's a ripe time to get into this investment. also simultaneously, when I look into our inside story, as I was telling, with this first 10, 15 years, we have delivered many products to our global Samsung entity. We've built credibility. Instead of just that commercialization, we started looking into the architectural part and how to go to market. So the whole research to market journey we have built over time. And even from that angle, I think it's a very right time to integrate our own solutions along with the startup.
Well, interesting. We're glad that you're back and investing in the startup ecosystem and how. But talk to us about the investment philosophy. How different or same would it be to the global playbook? Because you do have close more than $2 billion of assets under management. And the plan, I understand, is to back 100 startups really here in India.
Yes, I think the philosophy stays the same. We are looking into early stage to growth stage startups. Only difference is in this particular scheme of things, we are looking into startups that are operating in India and some of the solutions that could be beneficial for Indian consumers. Now, going into, yes, the press release talked about how we can go up to 100 investments. We talked about our 5-year roadmap, what are the kind of technologies we are looking into it, and also each of these investments could be of the order of $1 to $5 million. So the first set of investment that we announced 4 of the companies. One of them is called OS Labs, and they are building App Bazaar, and this Samsung Galaxy App Store people are using globally, but we wanted to make sure that it is very meaningful in India context. And with the help of OS Labs, which is also known as Indus OS in some other context, we are looking into their solutions and how to enrich these app stores with their 400,000 of apps that's going into 12 different Indian languages, taking it forward. The second,
all right, 4 startups that Samsung has backed, but could you break it down for us in terms of a checklist as far as sectors are concerned? What is it that you want to invest in? Should it really complement the products and services that Samsung has? So for entrepreneurs really watching this and reaching out to you, know that they're doing it in the right manner.
So again, if I take maybe 4-step approach, first of all is the domain. Samsung is vast, and we are looking into companies in AI and IoT and blockchain and security dimensions, in voice visual intelligence, in terms of InsurTech, in terms of health tech, services dimension that I talked about. So first of all, it should be a cutting edge technology, and you should have a core IP that helps for yourself and for the company a big entry barrier for that matter, or a value add to that extent. So that is first to get the domain right. The second dimension is typically that's any investment would look for a due diligence, who the team members are, being led by who, how long they have been working, what have been their credentials in the past, what solutions have they built. That's the present standing that I would like to talk about. The third dimension is about the solution, the richness of the solution, the degree of testing that has been done, where has been deployed, how can you bring it more features to that solution. So that richness of the solution is definitely very important, and definitely fitment to our product lines, as I mentioned earlier. And the last part of it is the roadmap ahead, how your solution is future ready, or how you can combat challenges in the future, what kind of utilization of the fund that you are planning. So I think this is the future roadmap that we would like to understand and hopefully help them to grow along that path. So these are 4 steps I would like to say.
Thank you so much. Interesting takeaways. Another new fund to watch out for Samsung Ventures, really. Moving on to my favorite segment on the show. Swiggy has completed 5 years of its operations in India, and they decided to really give more insights on what Indians love to order online. What is it that they really shop for? Let's take it up. The most ordered dish in the country really remains biryani, while dosa and burgers come in close on the second and third. So biryani, dosa, burgers are the most ordered products on Swiggy. Desserts and Indians definitely do have a sweet tooth. Gulab jamuns and rasmalai are the top selling desserts on the platform. Data crunched by Swiggy indicates. Special instruction really that customers ask for, and it seems like extra sauce is what Indians are really lapping up. That's a special instruction that a lot of customers who order on Swiggy are asking. A lot of interesting insights. The most preferred drink, really, many would think India is a chai loving country. That's not it, really. Coffee continues to be the most ordered drink on the platform. The highest number of orders, guests, really comes by during the dinner time. So Indians preferring to order most during dinner, while of course office goers like you and me during lunch is when we place our orders. The category of fast food really is has seen the highest number of orders. Interesting takeaways really there. And the dessert order value, which sort of took me by surprise, 72,000 odd rupees was spent on ice creams, really. And the customer that's ordered most number of times from Swiggy happens to be from Bangalore, ordered close to 17,000 times. Well, I do order a lot online, but that it's not me from Bangalore. With that, we come to an end to this power-packed edition of Startup Central. Stay tuned to ET Now for more news and updates.